Giving me an up-close and personal view. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Joanne Powell Show. I am Joanne. We are coming to you from the World Center of Broadcast Media, WCOBM.com Hollywood. And for those of you who are tuning in on the Go Harrison Show, we'd like to welcome you as well. Well, when it comes to politics, we are days away from President-elect Donald Trump becoming the 45th president of the United States. Well, the events... Some of this, I guess with this, some people are very excited about what's going on. They're happy that we're getting this new president. And there are others who are not as happy and very concerned because of Trump's stands on issues that they have that are very near and dear to them. Well, President-elect Trump had his very first news conference since July. And some of the issues that he was talking about were some of the things that he's doing in terms of the plan as he heads into taking over as president. One of the things that he says he's going to do and deal with conflict of interest, he wants to set up a trust for all of his business dealings, and that his two sons will be running the family businesses. His daughter Ivanka, she will also be leaving the company. Ivanka and her husband Jared will be moving to Washington, D.C. with their family. And Trump also says this is something that he was very concerned about and very upset about, and he's had some tweets on it as well, that the information claiming that his campaign had ties with Russia during the election were false. Along with that, Russia had any compromising information on him that might be used as blackmail. That also was false. Those reports were actually out by BuzzFeed News and CNN. And as a result of that, during the news conference, Trump actually refused to take any questions from those news agencies' reporters that were on hand. So that made for an interesting and very tense and awkward situation during his news conference. But also, besides that, he was saying that when it comes to other issues that he's going to be dealing with, Obamacare, that he's actually going to be repealing and replacing Obamacare. So those were some of the things that were the focus of that news conference that he actually held. But if you were watching the news or watching television last night, you are probably very aware that President Obama, he gave his very last speech to the nation. It was his farewell address from his hometown of Chicago. That's something that was very different. Most people do that from the White House or in Washington, D.C., but he chose to go back to where it all got started in Chicago. And it was very interesting if you watched it. He talked about some of his accomplishments that he had while he was in office for the past 8 years. And also he gave supporters a new mission and a call of action. And he even teared up and he was talking about his wife and his daughters. Take a listen.
If I had told you 8 years ago that America would reverse a Great Recession, reboot our auto industry, and unleash the longest stretch of job creation in our history, if I had told you that we would open up a new chapter with the Cuban people, shut down Iran's nuclear weapons program without firing a shot, take out the mastermind of 9/11. If I had told you that we would win marriage equality and secure the right to health insurance for another 20 million of our fellow citizens, if I had told you all that, you might have said our sights were set a little too high. But that's what we did. You were the change. You answered people's hopes. And because of you, by almost every measure, America is a better, stronger place than it was when we started. If something needs fixing, then lace up your shoes and do some organizing. If you're disappointed by your elected officials, grab a clipboard, get some signatures, and run for office yourself. Maybe you still can't believe we pulled this whole thing off. Let me tell you, you're not the only ones. Michelle? Michelle LaVaughn Robinson, girl of the South Side. For the past 25 years, you have not only been my wife and mother of my children, you have been my best friend. You took on a role you didn't ask for, and you made it your own, with grace and with grit and with style and good humor. You made the White House a place that belongs to everybody. And a new generation sets its sights higher because it has you as a role model. So you have made me proud, and you have made the country proud. Malia and Sasha, under the strangest of circumstances, you have become two amazing young women. You are smart and you are beautiful, but more importantly, you are kind and you are thoughtful and you are full of passion. And you wore the burden of years in the spotlight so easily. Of all that I have done in my life, I am most proud to be your dad. Yes, we can. Yes, we did. Yes, we can. Thank you. God bless you. May God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Obama also talked about how we as a nation, although we have a lot of differences, we need to come together, and those differences need to define us and bring us together versus causing division. Well, on Capitol Hill, there is a lot going on, and there's plenty of fireworks happening on Capitol Hill. There are hearings on several of President-elect Trump's picks for his cabinet. Basically, the biggest one that seems to be generating the most concern and getting the most scrutiny is that of Senator Jeff Sessions of Alabama. He is Trump's pick for Attorney General. Sessions was also the Attorney General in Alabama, and in 1986, Sessions was denied a judgeship due to some racial remarks that he allegedly made and issues involving regarding voter suppression in Alabama. Well, Sessions had several interruptions during his hearings yesterday. He is actually back testifying again, but we're going to take a look at some of that. He was defending his record, and he was interrupted several times. Take a look and listen.
Let me address another issue straight on. I was accused in 1986 of failing to protect the voting rights of African Americans by presenting the Perry County case, the voter fraud case, and of condemning civil rights advocates and organizations, and even harboring amazingly, sympathies for the KKK. These are damnably false charges. The voter fraud case my office prosecuted was in response to pleas from African-American incumbent elected officials who claimed that the absentee ballot process involved a situation in which ballots cast for them were stolen, altered, and cast for their opponents. The prosecution sought to protect the integrity of the ballot, not the block voting. It was a voting rights case. As to the KKK, I invited civil rights attorneys from Washington, D.C. to solve a very difficult investigation into the unconscionable, horrendous death of a young African American coming home from the 7-Eleven store at night simply because he was black. Michael Donald, and actively backed the attorneys throughout the case, and they broke that case. That effort led to a guilty plea and a life sentence in court for one defendant and his testimony against the other defender. There was no federal death penalty at the time. I felt the death penalty was appropriate in this case, and I pushed to have it tried in state court, which was done. That defendant was indeed convicted and sentenced to death, and 10 years later, ironically, as Alabama's Attorney General, my staff participated in the defense of that verdict and sentence, and a few months after I became United States Senator, that murdering Klansman was indeed executed. But I abhor the Klan and what it represents and its hateful ideology. I insisted Marsh Dees of the Southern Poverty Law Center and his lawsuit that led to the successful collapse of the Klan, at least in Alabama, the seizure of their building, at least for that period of time. As Civil Rights Division attorneys have testified before the committee, I supported fully their historic cases that the Justice Department filed to advance civil rights and that I supported, including cases to desegregate schools, abolish at-large elections for cities, county commissions, and school boards. These at-large elections were mechanisms used to block African-American candidates from being able to be elected to boards and commissions. It was a deliberate and part of a systemic plan to reduce the ability of African Americans to have influence in the election and governing process. I never declared the NAACP was un-American or that a civil rights attorney was a disgrace to his race. There is nothing I am more proud of than my 14 years of service in the Department of Justice. I love and venerate that great institution.
Our hearing today hardly introduces Senator Sessions to the committee. No.
We have to be in the streets starting January 14th to say no to this Trump fascist regime. We have to stop these motherfuckers from getting into power running started.
The NAACP is among the organizations that are in opposition to Sessions' appointment. And Sessions is back on Capitol Hill testifying once again today. And civil rights activist and Congressman John Lewis of Georgia will be among those who will be testifying against Sessions. And in an unprecedented move, there will be a seating someone that's currently in the Senate who will actually be testifying against Sessions, one of his own. And that is Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. He will be making a historical move to testify against Sessions, basically because of his concerns and his stands that Sessions has come out on in terms of civil rights and voter suppression issues. So there's more to come on that for sure. When we come back, Republicans in Congress are moving toward repealing the Obamacare. Along with that, they also want to take away federal funding to Planned Parenthood. We'll be talking about that when we come back, so stay tuned.
If you are an adult that began college and has not finished your college degree, let me put it to you straight. If your lifestyle and your standard of living is not becoming to you, then you should be coming to us, Oakwood University Elite Program. We are the fast, flexible adult degree completion program for the busy adult, like you.
Register today